for January, what we wanted to do is, obviously, because it's sort of the month of the book launch, You Coach You, we wanted to dive into each of the chapters in the book. So you've got a chapter on resilience, time, relationships, self-belief, purpose, and progression. that was not bad for remembering all those, but you've got all of those chapters, and we wanted to dive into each of those chapters with an expert, recognizing that no one has a monopoly on wisdom, and that we should open it up to bring other people's expertise into our learning, I suppose. So that was partly why we did in January these expert episodes. The other reason, honestly, that is an honest reason, but the other reason is because January's been really, really busy, and we were slightly worried about recording all of our normal podcasts on top of what was going on. So we recorded these in like December, so that we knew that we had these episodes in the bank for people. And as people are reading the book, we hope that they can, read the book and maybe listen to one of these episodes in parallel. So this week is the last of the series. We had progression on Tuesday and purpose, which should have gone live, and it hasn't. And I've been onto our podcast team being like, why is the episode on purpose not live? To be continued. I don't know, but it will go live today. And it's a goodie because it's with David Hyatt, who is the founder of Hyatt Denim, Do Lectures, Howie's. Like, if you know any of those brands, they are amazing brands, purpose at the core, and David is amazing. So that episode will be out later. But what I'm going to focus on today is the episode that went live on Tuesday, which is all around progression. And it is a conversation that Sarah had with Adam Morgan, who is this lovely gentleman here, who has written a book called Beautiful Constraints. And that's really, he's contributed to You Coach You, and then he shared his expertise in this conversation that Sarah had with him. And I really, really enjoyed listening to it. So what I've tried to bring to life today is the insights that I took out of that conversation, and particularly with a view of how I could apply it, how I could take that conversation, apply it to me in my career. And if you have listened, actually, if anyone has listened, let me know in chat. Just say, yes, managed to listen. Don't worry if you didn't, particularly newbies, don't worry, you never have to have listened. We always kind of try to recover. I'm just going to hide your names. Brilliant. So Annie Annie, you're new, and you've listened. Maria, over breakfast today, Steve says. Yeah, I thought it was great. Brilliant. I really liked it. He's got a lovely kind of pace, hasn't he, in his communication, Adam. Oh, wow. Elaine's listened to it 3 times. That is impressive. Elaine, fill in any gaps that I've got. I'm sure I've got plenty. You probably know it much better than me. That's brilliant. What made you listen 3 times, Elaine? What made you listen? Did you like it that much, or do you normally listen to podcasts 3 times? I'm fascinated. And we paired it, by the way, all of these episodes this month, we've paired with a previous one. So we paired the episode that Sarah had with Adam with a conversation that I had with Sophie Williams, really interesting, about the glass cliff that holds progression back. So Adam's all about overcoming constraints, but Sophie's very much about, let's be clear about the constraints that happen and what we need to do within an organization to help people whose progression might be constrained by bias. Oh, Elaine, distracted, so did not get the message. Well, I think that is very growth mindset that you then listen to it 3 times. Kareem, brilliant. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic conversation with Sophie. It's a brilliant TED talk that she's got as well. So I have some questions for you before I start sort of sharing my perspectives for hopefully us all to learn collectively on and for you to build on. My first question to you is, do you feel that your career is constrained in some way at the moment? We're going to do this with stars. Everybody that has a star. Green is yes, I feel like it is constrained. Red is no. That probably should be the other way around, but just go with it for now because I've said it. Green is my career is constrained. Red is there are no constraints. So green is there is some kind of constraint. Red is there are no constraints. I appreciate that. It mentally might be hard, but actually overcoming constraints is all about doing mental hard things. So let's juxtapose the greens and reds. So green is yes, Helen, there is a constraint on my career right now, and red is I am constraint free. Let's see, do we feel that our career is constrained right now? Okay. By the way, new people, the way that people are putting these stars on the screens, in case you're thinking, what is this technology? It is top of your screen, view options, and then annotate, and then stamp, and then star. So it's view options, annotate, stamp and style. Sarah, thank you for putting that in there. So there is the instructions in chat if you can't see them. So that tells me that the majority of us think we have some kind of constraint upon our career. And Adam in the episode, he talks about he just sort of names 3 types of constraints that are most frequent. A lack of time to do the things you might want to do, a lack of money, a lack of resources, which I guess is quite a big catch-all, isn't it? Resources, or I've got other. Could you stick a star if you think your constraint is one of those things? So if the constraint on your career is I don't have enough time to do the thing that I want to do, I don't have enough money to do the thing I want to do, I don't have the resources, whatever that means for you, or if it's something else, and if it is something else, could you share it with me in chat? You can either do that with everybody, or you can message me privately and I'll talk about what that other constraint is without using your name if you're more comfortable with that. But particularly given we've got quite a lot of people who have got an other, I'm interested. Okay, so an alignment with values. That's interesting. An alignment with purpose. Okay. Interesting. So there's some messages coming through to me that it's like either not feeling valued, so the work that I can do, I want to do isn't valued by my company, and that's what's constraining me, or maybe a lack of fit with values. So that it's the same word but slightly different meaning on that, I think. Really interesting age. Tanya has said that, and I've got a book. I've got a book en route, which is called Stage Not Age, and I really want Sarah and I to do a podcast on overcoming age discrimination at work, or at least responding to age discrimination at work at all kind of spectrums of age, actually. So it's a work in progress. I want to read that book, do a bit more research, and there's a couple of organizations that we work with that I'd like to maybe even partner with something in that space. Corinne says organizational restructures, so maybe feeling like you can't do the thing you want to do because all this sort of change is going on around you. Resource at work, 3 of us running a whole department, Charlotte says. Okay, so constraints feel real and relevant is what I'm taking away from kind of this little survey that we have done here for lots of different reasons. So let me just clear your stars, and with that in mind, that the majority of us feel like we've got a constraint, and that there's a mix of factors that are constraining us. Let me talk through what Adam shared on the podcast and see how useful this feels to your very real and relevant constraint, and maybe we can have that debate about whether you think this could help you. So what Adam talks about is that when we have constraints on our career, so let's take Charlotte's example of 3 of us running a whole department, which is like I've basically got too much to do in a day to perhaps do the things that feel important, meaningful and motivating for me. He said that the trap that we can fall into is sort of this victim mode. And I'll talk about what that sounds like in a minute. But he says that the journey we need to go on to is when we've got a constraint, is instead of being in victim mode, we need to sort of neutralize the emotion that constraint might be causing. So, we can feel very negative when we're in victim mode. I can't help myself. It's not possible to move forward from here. I can't do the things that I want to do. Very emotion heavy. And so we need to neutralize it. And then what we need to do is reframe the constraint into something that's much more transformative. So rather than it being something that holds you back, which is sort of where we are when we're up here, is actually something that can move you forward, which is where we are when we're here. Now, I think that could sound super idealistic. Like, Helen, my age feels like a real constraint. Helen, I can't create more hours in a day. This sounds all very nice, but this is a very real issue for me. So I get the fact that sounds like, oh, just reframe your constraints into something transformative. Sounds a bit annoying. But actually, I think his approach is very useful. So I think take this is the journey he's trying to get us on. His practical ideas for action are what I think make this a very credible approach. So let's just start with this kind of victim piece here. And what does this sound like? So this probably sounds like slightly different things in your own head, but he describes it as sounding a bit like, I can't because, and then, you follow that with I can't because there aren't enough hours in a day. I can't because I don't have the money to do what I need to do. I can't because the organization doesn't value my skill set. Insert every constraint that goes around our head in the ... here. And he said that in that situation where we've got quite a lot of high constraint in our career, the thing that's the real variable that gets affected by the constraint is our ambition. And what tends to happen is that we have a big constraint, and if we're in victim mode, what we do is lower our ambition, and effectively we compromise ourselves and we compromise our career. So we're like, this feels hard and impossible. I can't do this because X, Y, and Z, and therefore I'm going to compromise and lower my ambition. And he says that what we have to do much more is get into this keep the high ambition, keep it there, keep the high constraint, keep the high ambition, and instead move to that state that he talks about, kind of this much more transformative state. So don't lower the ambition, keep the ambition high, and accept that there is a constraint, but do something different. And the thing that he says that we need to do different is using a statement, for example, that's much more like, I can if. So you would say, this one over here might sound like, I can't invest in my learning because I'm running a department that should have 10 people and it's only got 3. So I can't do these other things that I want to do. I can't start a side project. I can't volunteer for an initiative at work that aligns with my purpose because there's only 3 people doing this department worth of work. So we kind of compromise our ambition. He says that what we need to do if we're in transformative mode is change our thinking to, well, I can learn at the same time as working if we reprioritize the projects, if some people come into our team to work on that stuff, like we do some kind of rotation element, if we move deadlines, if we stop doing some stuff and see if people shout at us. I don't know. But the point is here, you can start to generate much more options. And this is the point here he's trying to get us to in much more kind of generative space. And what he says here, this is something I quite like on the podcast, is almost like he redefines achievement. So he says that achievement, which I'll just do as A, equals ambition plus constraint. So through his work, what he has shown is that actually it's not ambition alone that leads to achievement. It's where there's almost some kind of tension. There's almost this is what I want to achieve in my work and in my career, but it's not easy because of this thing. And he says that what we really should be doing in this situation is upping the ambition and upping the constraint. He calls this using propelling questions. So this is like the framework for a propelling question, and maybe we can throw some stuff in here. So how can I, for example, let's do, I'll do a real one. How can I 10x amazing ifs impact when I can't increase the team size? Let's just say that there are people from my team on now that are panicking. I'm just using it as a very propelling question, team. Do not panic too much. But that would be, he says here, what I've done here is I've really upped the ambition, 10x amazing ifs impact, but I've also really upped the constraint. Got to do it with the resources I've got today. And what he says is that when you have these propelling questions, these ones, he calls it being productively uncomfortable, which I kind of quite like as a framing. Actually, the episode as a whole has some really nice sort of statements in, being productively uncomfortable. I've written down a bit of paper here, like all of Adam's like statements that are stuck with me, like being productively uncomfortable, stubbornly adapted, creating unexpected benefits. So I was like, oh, that's a lovely turn of phrase. But when you start asking these propelling questions, well, how could I 10x amazing this impact when I can't increase the team size? It can take your brain to slightly different places in terms of the scenarios that you can come up with, the options you could create. So I'm going to ask you this question. Let's see how effective it is. I definitely don't have the answer to this, but if this was the propelling question that I was asking myself, like let's put it to you. Let's see what you think. If I was saying we were in a room together, we're in a Zoom together, same sort of thing, isn't it? How could we increase amazing if all things squiggly our impact by 10 times? But I have to do it with a team that I've got at the moment. What are your thoughts on that? Let's see what ideas we could generate. Head into chat. If you've got any ideas that I say propelling questions, ask us all to act as ambassadors. Amazing, Maria. Do less, more impactful work. That is a good point. I mean, I'm totally saving this chat, everybody. Sarah will be very pleased with this. More quick wins, recruit volunteers. Ask the team what they feel like they're doing that doesn't add value. Love that, Katie. Collaborate more. I said more of like an ecosystem rather than kind of an owned system. Love that. Ask attendees to share materials after the session. Oh, so oh my gosh, we train, Karine, we train maybe like, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 people a week. Sometimes a lot more. Sometimes like 10,000 people in a session. If every one of those people shared one of our resources, that is a very good idea. Increase the number of fans you have who spread the message for you. I love this, everybody. I mean, this is a lot more ideas than I had. This is the point, right? Partner with others, use community, use your networks, outsource. Love it, love it, love it, love it. This is the point, everybody, about how this can work. So I actually really like these slightly impossible questions, or as Adam calls them, propelling questions. Set up the each one teach one model. Yeah, Kate, maybe formalize that one a little bit. Love it. So see, I think it's working out what these are for you, but they've got to feel that you are upping the ambition and you are really upping the constraint. Like don't make it an easy thing, because that's where he says you get much more achievement out of it. I also wanted to, before I kind of ask you about any questions or any perspectives on this, I wanted to share a very, very real constraint that we had. I kind of wanted to bring this to life for you in the journey that we went on as a team at Christmas, just to kind of show you how it can work. So I guess you'll have seen this from afar because you'll have probably seen the books that we ended up personalizing, but that wasn't some master marketing strategy. It was very much a response to a constraint. So in December, probably, gosh, team, I can see Sarah and Lucy are here, late December, we had to pull a launch event that we had on the 12th of January. So the book came out on the 13th of January, on the 12th of January, and the team had been working really hard on it. And we had like 150, 160 people invited to that event. And it was to say thank you to our clients and thank you to people that had helped us. And we had to pull it because at the time, there was a lot of unknowns about the Omicron variant, and it just didn't feel safe or right to do. So we pulled it, and it was a bit gutting, to be honest. And the constraint was like, well, how do we launch a book without a launch event? Like, also that felt like us, and that felt, of course we could just do a virtual event, but that just didn't feel like us. It didn't feel like personal enough. That event was a personal way of saying thank you to people that had helped us along the way, and just doing a Zoom didn't quite feel it. So I guess the constraint was, how can we launch a book in a way that feels personal and meaningful to the people that had helped us? And it was like, well, I can't, because we can't do an in-person event. Like we just can't. The moment we'll miss, and we'll just do a celebration event in March. And for a while we did think that. We were like, oh, we can't, we'll just move it. We'll just move the event to March, and that'll be the end of it. We'll just call it a celebration and we won't do anything else. And then we started to think, well, to this point, how could we launch the book in a meaningful and personal event way when we can't have a meaningful and in-person event? And that became our propelling question. And we had this idea that had been floating for a while around personalized books. We hadn't connected the dots, to be honest. Sarah had gone on a course. This is probably 10 years ago now, more than 10 years ago. Sarah had gone on a course about why should anyone be led by you, with Rob Joffrey was one of the people who'd written that book. And when she went to that course, they gave her a book that said, why should anyone be led by Sarah? And we always thought, like 10 years ago, we're like, that is so cool. That is so cool. Like you get your own personalized book. And we'd always thought, oh, how could we do something that had that level of connection with somebody? And we'd never done anything with that idea. And so we were like, okay, well, maybe we could do something that feels meaningful and personalized. And we were like, well, we could, if we found someone that could print the book covers very quickly, so we could get the books out, because this was like very late December, and you had like COVID issues and Christmas, and we wanted to get it to people for book launch day. So we were like, we could find a printer that could turn it around really quickly. We could, if we had a designer that was able to get all the names and do this very quickly. We could, if the team got together and packed up like 160 boxes in a day. And so we were like, well, okay, we sort of now know how. We just got to go do. And we did. we managed to make it happen, and we shared those books out into the world. And you've probably seen them because they've been like, all over social media. We then had we then had these personalized books that went out to people, and people shared them because it did what we wanted it to. It felt personal and meaningful. Now, the end of this story is that Adam talks about constraints can lead to unexpected benefits. That when you really embrace constraints, not only can you create something good in the moment, you can create something better because of it. And I really feel that that is now what we have done. So we put it out. You've probably seen it as like, today is the very last day, by the way, if you want to order one for yourself. We did it as a gift to people. And then we had so many requests. People were writing on their book. There's someone on LinkedIn called Mick, who'd written Mick Coped Mick on his book. And we're like, gosh, we need to get this out for people so they could do it. So we've got one more day for people to be able to order these for themselves. But this is now going to be a benefit that we can offer to our clients. Like all those client sessions that we can run, this is something that we'll do for our clients now. And we never would have thought through how we could make that happen if we hadn't had to respond very quickly to that constraint. So that is a very real example of this thinking in action. And so I hope that even though this sort of thing might seem hard and a little bit trite, his practical actions that you can take, and hopefully the application that I've talked through there shows you that it is real and that it does work. So I am going to stop sharing now.